Today, we will have a brief discussion on meditation, and I will discuss the 3 ways I know of to achieve the alpha brainwave state. What is the alpha brainwave state? Well, this is the goal of all people who meditate. It's a state in which your mind is completely at ease and just allows thoughts to flow without forcing or emptying them from the mind. It's a common misconception that the mind must be empty when meditating. The mind must be clear of blockage and free to flow as it will. The first way to reach this state, as mentioned, is most obvious, and that is meditation. It's been spoken of for thousands of years as a means to achieve a higher plane of consciousness. There are 2 other ways that I know of. One of them has been in use also for thousands of years. The other is a more recent advancement that causes everybody to slip into this state while they are unaware of it. First, we will discuss drum rhythms. The pulsating beating of a drum, the vibration, the echo, the sound waves. It's been proven that the tempo of a drum beat can either speed or decrease your heartbeat, but it also has an effect on the waves of the brain. Certain drumming patterns, low, slow, drawn-out drums, can cause a person over extended periods of time to slip into the alpha brainwave state. The other way is to simply get in your car and drive for about 20 minutes. You ever felt like you drove a long way, but you weren't really there for the drive? You were aware, cognizant the whole time, making decisions, driving the car, but it didn't actually take any conscious effort. Your mind was lost in thought while you were off in other places in your mind, solving possible problems, going over conundrums in your head, trying to work things out. Before you know it, you've driven the whole way. In our previous video, we briefly touched on vibration and its effects. Resonation is not just something that happens with sound waves, it happens with all energy waves. And though we have not yet touched on our energy segment, I would like to take a moment to explain to you that you are an antenna. You are a receiver of sorts and a transmitter of sorts. Think of it this way. Have you ever woken up in one room and you could immediately tell that an electrical device was on in the adjacent room? Not from the noise, not from seeing it. You could just feel it. This is a small example of the capabilities of humankind. We take these for granted, but the reason I bring it up now is because in order to meditate, when you reach that alpha brainwave state, what you're really doing is clearing your mind of the blockages that prevent you from receiving signals. This does not mean you will automatically develop psychic powers, though I do not rule out the possibility of people having mental acuities beyond what is normally understood as reasonable. I do believe that in order to let the universe speak to you, you must first empty your thoughts from your head. I seem to be dwelling on this quite a bit, but the fact of the matter is, like I said, it's a common misconception that people think you must empty your mind, when the truth is it must be clear. Signals must be allowed to pass through, and your natural train of thought must be allowed to occur. If you follow this train of thought, we'll touch on many subjects. Eventually you will find yourself thinking about one thing, and everything else will slowly have faded to the background. This is not the normal state of human operation. Our brains take in so much data through all of our senses that we know of, and in my mind through senses that we don't, and it is the brain's job to filter out what is unnecessary. This causes the brain to filter out a lot of things that we simply don't understand. Just because we don't understand them does not mean that they're not happening. It does not mean that these energies do not exist, and it does not mean that we are not picking them up. It merely means our filters have been adjusted since we were very young to ignore them. On the subject of senses that we don't understand, I would like to point out that most people who meditate Most cultures who have meditative practices believe that the energies that they're picking up and receiving enter and exit through the pineal gland. What is the pineal gland? It's exactly what it sounds like, a gland, and it is in the human brain. Although unlike most parts of the human brain, this one bridges a gap between the left side and the right side, and is neither dominated by the left or right side, and is therefore independent of both, but linked to both. The interesting thing about the pineal gland is that it is inside your skull, buried deep within your brain, and yet it has a lot of the same receptors that your eyes have, meaning it's picking up data somehow. But since it has no physical sight capabilities, that leaves us to wonder, what does this antenna receive? I can tell you from experience that I have seen a light, a beautiful violet light bordering on crimson that hid behind dark clouds in my vision. My mind's eye showed to me my pineal gland. The pineal gland is actually something that is in charge of releasing and controlling DMT in the body. There are tiny crystals in the pineal gland of this substance that are always there. It is believed that it is the pineal gland's job, upon birth, death, and other experiences of great shock, to release this DMT into the body in such a fashion that it overwhelms the ability for the DMT blockers in your body to stop it from having an effect. Meaning, well, basically, when you die, you trip balls. There are, however, other ways to open the pineal gland and unlock that flow of DMT. What is DMT? Well, if you've never heard of it before, I'm not going to discuss it here. It's something that most people would consider a drug, but it is actually a chemical that is found in every single living thing in nature. It is in you right now. The only reason that you're not tripping out of your mind on DMT right now is because all living things also have DMT blockers. As I mentioned before, there are certain points in your life when these DMT blockers get shut down and the drug takes over. It's not really a drug, more of a chemical compound, and it can't be manufactured. It just simply exists. On the subject of DMT, if you're interested, maybe do a search for something called ayahuasca. I won't give you the exact spelling here because I'm positive that I would butcher it, but it is a South American tradition in the rainforest, where they find a specific plant which is high in DMT, and another plant which inhibits the DMT blocker in your body, and they make a sort of stew. Now, this trip is not to be taken lightly. It is not a recreational journey. This is something that will make you sick. You will vomit. You will spew from your backside. After you are done expelling all of the substance which you imbibed, you will begin to see something that was there the whole time. A web, a lace of interconnecting energies running through all things, and not just those alive, but those inanimate as well. I mentioned before that stone and metal have spirit too. That may be a hokey word to use, but the fact of the matter is, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is constantly cycling from one item to the next, creating matter, destroying matter, but always present. So, that being said, the energy that created the rock is still in the rock. Just because it isn't manifested in another form or put forth from the rock does not mean that it does not exist. So then, how do we unlock the potential of sensing things with the pineal gland when we've trained our brains for our whole lives to block out the signals it receives? Well, in order to do this properly, the easiest way is to deprive yourself of the other senses. There are places you can go where they will submerge you in saltwater baths, making you nearly weightless. They will cover your eyes and cover your ears, and you will be completely separated from everything that bonds you to the physical world. Your sense of touch will be inundated by a floating sensation. Your sense of sight will be blinded. Your sense of sound will be muted. In doing this, you open your brain up to relying on the only senses it has left. Ones that we haven't really researched or studied and don't even really know for sure can be proven to exist. And yet, if you were to do this for yourself and deprive yourself of your other senses, spend enough time concentrating on your pineal gland, you would know, as I do, that we have barely scratched the surface of human capability. So here's what I propose. Earplugs and a blindfold will do the same job, although it may take a little longer to feel the separation from the world you would feel from one of these tanks. My suggestion is that you cover your eyes, plug your ears, lay somewhere dark and still, and concentrate. Think only of opening your third eye. The first time I saw the light was unintentional. I had laid down in my bed face down, face pressed against the pillow, and I simply started to drift lost in thought. After a few moments I felt a strange sensation as if my eyes were crossed, a slight headache in the middle of my head, in the fore, not a pain really, almost an ache, as if I were stretching a muscle that hadn't been stretched in a long time. This was interesting to me, and so I gave into it. With your senses blocked off, you need only relax. Tell your brain to reach out with anything else it can find. Open yourself up to becoming a receiver to energy. Now, truth be told, a lot of this sounds like hocus pocus, or bullshit, you might say. But the fact of the matter is, I've meditated for many years. I've tried several different methods. This I discovered on accident, and it is the only thing that I have ever seen to make me believe that there is a higher power in the universe. The interesting thing is, it came from within me. Seeing this light caused me to do a lot of research, a lot of reading, and I spent a lot of time studying other religions and other practices of meditation. Basically, it all comes back to one thing: vibration. Your body resonates at a certain frequency. When your brain is in that alpha wave state, your brain is resonating at that frequency, meaning that the whole antenna is vibrating at the same pitch, same frequency, and is therefore more capable of picking up subtle vibrational changes in the universe around you. It's hard to describe what I saw with my eyes. It was a physical vision, something manifest in my mind's eye. It had form, it had color. It seemed to be struck by the reflection of light, and yet it was not something that existed anywhere in this world. The first time I did this, I was concentrating on my pineal gland. And if you don't know, the shape of the pineal gland is somewhat like a pine cone. I'm not sure if this is what gave me the impression of crystals, and I'm not sure what the dark clouds were that obscured the light. When I say dark clouds, I mean clouds. There was a pinprick of light with dark, dark clouds rolling across them, and the light would bubble from beneath, piercing it, giving me a feeling of great joy. But I didn't understand what it was. Still not quite sure I do. All I know is that now when I close my eyes and I think about my pineal gland opening, when I make myself available to pick up other energies that I otherwise block out unconsciously, I still see that light. It comes easier each time. There have been times since the first time I saw the light when concentrating on another thing, a vision of it would pop into my mind, clear as day, a crystal picture in high definition. It was momentary. It was always at odd angles. I'm not one who believes that remote viewing is a possibility. I do, however, believe that remote sight might be. What is the difference between the two? Well, astral projection is what most people would consider remote viewing, where you are physically there and able to watch what is going on, or at least your spirit is. The sight I speak of is a flash, a vision, a picture, a moment in time. More of a sense of what the desired object is doing or is at that moment. This is what is meant by empty your mind. You're not to empty it, but clear it. Take away the walls that you've put up, the things that bind you to the reality you can see and touch and smell and taste, leaving yourself still very real, but out of contact with everything. The brain longs to be part of the universe. It is the seat of the soul, and the soul is of energy. Energy is everything. The more you deprive yourself of physical sensations, the more you'll begin to have mental sensations and spiritual ones as well. This state is a state sought after by shamans and priests for thousands of years. There are monks who meditate for years on end and spend their whole lifetime trying to achieve one moment of nirvana. I can tell you from experience that it is a very strange thing to feel this connection, to know that you and I are the same. Not the same in theory, but the same in fact. The energy you are made of is stardust. That stardust is the same that makes up me and everyone else. The very most basic level, we are all vibrating strings. And if you subtract those, we are left with nothing. Whether it is a thought that I have that sends a signal to my mouth to speak a word that occurred inside my brain, or a signal that sends down my arm to move my hand to grasp an object, they are both still signals. Your brain is broadcasting. The energy, or vibration, travels down your nervous system, and your muscles respond in kind. Who's to say that energy can't travel outside your nervous system? More particularly, I spoke of monks a moment ago. There is a ritual among a certain cult of monks in Tibet that in order to achieve the highest level of mastery they can in their craft of meditation, they take a wet towel and wrap it around their head. They then proceed to sit out in the cold until the towel is dry. For some monks, this can be deadly. For most, it takes a day or two. The odd thing is, even the ones that take a day or two, it should never dry. They are completely soaked towels, and these men are in ice-cold conditions. The water should just freeze to their head. If you've ever seen this ritual, these men are not wearing jackets or burqas, or in most cases, even very thick shoes. So, with cold, freezing water on their heads, and no outer clothes, they should freeze quite rapidly. Instead, there are tales of monks completing this process within an hour, simply by sending all of their energy up to their head to superheat the towel, and videos have actually been taken of steam rising off these towels as the water dissipates in freezing cold weather. This is going to conclude our lecture on meditation and the pineal gland. However, we will be introducing a playlist at some point in the near future, which will be guided meditation. Don't worry, we're not going to use a gong. But I will ask you to sit, to blindfold yourself, and to listen to my words. For now, though, thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video. Tell a friend, and share this video where you can. We're a small channel, but we're growing, and growing faster each day. We appreciate your support, and don't forget to reach out to us on the community tab of our channel page and leave a comment about anything you might like to see or any questions you might have.